guys, so this is my part 3 of my response video to Ronnie Lee's "You Can't Be Right-Wing and Vegan." This video is going to go over 3 things. The first one is economic growth and how that would benefit a vegan society. The second one is a kind of criticism of democratic socialism and how I don't think that would necessarily benefit a vegan society. And the third point, we'll go over some of the more general topics used to promote the Labour Party and my criticism of them.
Socially has to be a left-wing movement. Veganism economically has to be a left-wing movement as well. And the reason is because right-wing economics, capitalism and neoliberalism, drives consumption, consumerism, drives materialism, and that causes the destruction of the natural world. All the resources used to create material things come from the natural world, and the more we take from the natural world, the more impact there's going to be on other animals. The impact that's going to destroy the lives, and is destroying the lives of countless wild animals. And that is right-wing economics. Right-wing economics is not consistent with animal liberation, it's not consistent with caring about, with protecting other animals. In order to protect other animals, we have to reduce our consumption, we have to reduce our materialism, we have to reduce our impact on the natural world, and that's not going to come under capitalism. Animal liberation cannot come under capitalism, it cannot come under right-wing economics. Because what we need, we don't want economic growth. Economic growth is destroying the natural world. We need degrowth. We need to reduce the amount we take from the natural world, hugely reduce the amount we take from the natural world, in order to create a planet Earth where there's justice to the other species that live upon it, where the human species lives in a way that is fair and just to the other animals. We have to massively reduce our impact. If you're going to have degrowth, that means there's less to go round for humans. And that's fine. We can do a much less.
So the main reason that I think we need economic growth in a vegan society, and I've explained this in a previous video, is simply because innovation is a very wasteful process. Innovation requires that a company actually trial a new product. And in order to make the products that we currently have on the market vegan, so for example making jelly beans vegan, the jelly bean manufacturer would have to trial a set of vegan jelly beans. If people didn't like those jelly beans, they would basically they would waste those vegan jelly beans that people didn't like, and they would have to create a new version of jelly beans, like a jelly beans vegan 2.0, which people did like. And so the whole process of innovation is quite wasteful, because you're creating new products and you don't know if those products are going to work, and if they don't work, you have to waste them and throw them in the bin. The same thing happens from a customer level. If a customer actually sees some coconut milk on the shelf and they really think they might like to drink it, what happens is they will buy this new coconut milk and they will buy their old cow's milk. And what will end up happening is, if they really like the coconut milk, they will end up throwing away the cow's milk, and that will go down the drain. And this process will happen until they get out of the habit of buying their old cow's milk. And so essentially, both from a consumer level and from the level of the company, innovation is a very wasteful process, but it's needed for us to actually get to the point where we're, in a more or less completely vegan society. I also don't agree that we'll ever get to a vegan society, but I think that one day our food system will change into something different. It will change into a system where we're just printing food from a machine. But again, in order to get to the point where we're printing food from a machine as opposed to farming food and eating it, what will essentially need innovation. Will essentially need people working on lab meat, working on various other types of innovation, and a lot of these innovations are very wasteful. I mean, if we have a lab meat company that goes bankrupt, then a lot of their materials and supplies might be thrown away. And it's quite sad, but we need to go through that process of innovation in order to get to the point where we're in a vegan society or a more or less vegan society.
It is fair and just to the other animals. We have to massively reduce our impact. If you're going to have degrowth, that means there's less to go round for humans. And that's fine. We can make do on much less. But we can't make do on much less as a species unless we redistribute wealth. Because if we keep the redistribution of wealth the same as is now, and we reduce the amount of stuff that humans have, then what's going to happen is the poor are going to suffer. A rich person can live on half, a quarter of what they're living on now. A poor person can't. So if we're going to have degrowth, if we're going to reduce our impact on the natural world, we have to have redistribution of wealth. We have to have some sort of socialist system. I would say eco-socialism is what we need, which is justice within the human species and justice outside of the human species, where our species treats other animals with justice. And that is a left-wing philosophy. It cannot come with...
Okay, so firstly, I'm just going to go over some of my issues with socialism in general. In terms of, from a UK angle, when we talk about democratic socialism, we'll be talking about things like moving towards a system where we have free transportation, maybe a system where we have more benefits for poor people or people on an employment benefit. So I disagree with both of those things. I don't agree that we should move towards a public transportation system which is owned by the government. I don't think that that's a good idea. It basically just means increasing people's taxes in order to make the transportation system very low cost. As someone who's on an employment benefit or universal credit, I don't need any more money. I don't need transportation to be cheap. It's just not something that I need. And the fact is that as transportation isn't cheap, a lot of working class people or people that live in London where the transportation costs are very high are walking to work, are biking to work. You know, when I go to the cinema, I bike to the cinema. I don't get a bus there. When I was a kid, and you know, my mum is also working class as well, we walked to the cinema. And I think that these things are much more beneficial to the environment. If we had cheap, low-cost transportation, I think that what would end up happening is that you'd have more people using transportation, and so you'd have to have more buses, more trains, all sorts of other forms of public transport that people need. So I don't think that having free, well, it's not free transportation, but it's low cost transportation funded by the government is effective. I also don't agree that people on unemployment benefit need any more money. I think that if anything, I could do with less money on unemployment benefit. I think that the government actually increased universal credit from £317 to about £400 a month, and I think that the £300 a month was fine. It wasn't, I was quite happy on that much. I mean, I don't need £500 a month either. I think that increasing unemployment benefit in a way just incentivizes people not to work. And there are people that come from generations and generations and generations of families that have just not worked. Their grandparent lost their job in the 80s, because they were a miner or something, and then you have whole mining towns full of people living off unemployment benefit. I think if we had a system where maybe you were only able to claim unemployment benefit for 3 years, and then your benefit stopped, I think people would be a lot more focused on getting a job. I think that would be a much better system and a much fairer system. And so I don't really agree with any of those things. So my second issue is that essentially by increasing benefits for poor people, or having some kind of transportation system which was owned by the government, basically what that would mean is that you would be taxing businesses. It would mean more business taxes, and that would include business taxes on both small vegan restaurants and also event companies that do things like vegan festivals. Both of those are things that benefit the vegan movement. Having more vegan businesses around drives up the competition for vegan products, lowering the price of vegan products, meaning that more people will actually meaning that people are more likely to buy them. Having more vegan businesses increases the accessibility and the availability of vegan products, meaning that more people will try those vegan products, which in turn helps animals. Having more vegan festivals around means that you have more vegan activists talking to people, and therefore more people are likely to go vegan because they've been talking to vegan activists and they've had conversations with those vegan activists. So I don't think that increasing business taxes in any way benefits the vegan movement. I think it actually disadvantages the vegan movement because we're taxing vegan businesses. And in turn, if you're taxing them at a higher price, they're more likely to go out of business. If you're taxing event companies at a higher price, they're more likely to go out of business. And so I just don't agree with this whole idea that taxing vegan businesses in order to pay for socialised transportation is a good thing for the vegan movement. It seems counterproductive, to be honest. So my very last point would be that even if we were to say that the Labour Party had better animal welfare policies, which I'm not sure if they do, I think that we have to account for the fact that they're going to tax vegan businesses and vegan event companies running vegan festivals, and that would have an impact on animal rights and us spreading the animal rights message. I think that we have to consider the fact that our local MP might be wanting to ban halal and kosher meat, or might be a Conservative MP, Conservative vegan MP. It was quite interesting because in London, a vegan Conservative MP got voted out of his seat, and I was completely shocked by that, because it's probably the fact that some of those people in that constituency who were vegan were going on about how awful the Conservative Party was for animal welfare, but then they voted against a Conservative vegan MP that would have been able to implement policies, local policies, which would have, stopped maybe meat being sold, or meat and eggs and dairy products being sold in schools, or maybe they would have been able to implement a policy which had a meat-free Monday, or maybe a policy in hospitals where they had meat-free Monday or more vegan options. And he would have been able to actually make the Conservative Party go in a more animal-friendly way. But anyway, my point here was that even if we were to pretend that in every single situation the Labour vote is a default animal welfare vote or animal rights vote, then we have to admit that people are much more complicated creatures than just that one thing. As vegans, we have a number of different beliefs. It may be that you're a vegan and you are pro-life, and being pro-life means the most to you, and so you're going to vote for an MP that is pro-life over anything else. It may be that you're a vegan and you're really concerned about immigration, and that, wanting to, curb mass immigration or wanting to reduce the amount of immigrants coming into the country every year is more important to you than voting for animal rights policies. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, I don't think that any vegan would always make the most animal friendly vote. And to prove this, I honestly think, personally, if there was someone from the Patriotic Alternative standing as an MP in my local constituency, the Patriotic Alternative want to get rid of, basically they want to ban halal and kosher meat. They want to get rid of vivisection and testing on live animals, and they also want to move towards a completely a situation where we don't have any factory farms whatsoever, where we have these kind of no factory farms, just the small kind of local farms. Now that system, or a move towards that kind of system, would be much better for animal rights and animal welfare. But I'm not going to vote for the Patriotic Alternative, and I don't expect far left vegans or left wing vegans to vote for them either, because this party has a number of other, what could be considered racist policies, like they want to deny free access to education for people that don't speak English, and free access to medical care for people who don't speak English, and they want to give £15,000 to people who aren't ethnically British to move out the country. I think that those policies are inappropriate, and I'm sure that people on the left would think those policies are inappropriate. So just because they have better animal welfare standards than Labour, and just because they're the more vegan option to vote for, it doesn't mean that we'll vote for them, because we're complex human beings, and as well as being a a vegan, I'm not someone who wants to promote the message that non-ethnically British people should move out of the country, and I'm sure you as a vegan don't want to promote that message either. So in conclusion, voting is a lot more complex than these left-wing vegans make it out to be. And anyway, thank you for watching, guys. Please subscribe and like this video, and yeah, comment down below if you like it.